She boarded a plane to chase a modeling opportunity, the kind thousands pursue every year. But within days of landing in Southeast Asia, 26-year-old Vera Kravtsova vanished into a network of scam compounds, militias, and unregistered crematoriums. Her passport was seized, her phone repurposed, and her digital footprint erased. What followed were ransom messages, a cremation certificate with no body, and a silence no government could explain. If you're enjoying this video, like it, share your thoughts in the comments, and subscribe to the Shadow Book. Vera Kravtsova's digital records show a stable pattern in the weeks before her departure: routine posts on Instagram, short rehearsal clips for a local performance, and a series of messages exchanged with photographers she had previously worked with in China. She had been attempting to expand her portfolio and was accustomed to receiving casual inquiries, most of which were small collaborations. On the evening of September 3, 2025, that pattern shifted. A new contact reached her through Telegram, presenting what appeared to be a structured modeling contract in Southeast Asia. The message included a PDF attachment and a brief introduction from a self-described regional talent partner, the only illumination in the room that night, as noted from her phone's front camera reflection, came from the dim light of the device she held close to her face. The offer followed a recognizable recruitment model used commonly across Eastern Europe: high-paying foreign shoots, rapid scheduling, minimal interview procedures, and immediate provision of travel logistics. The contract listed paid flights, accommodation in Bangkok, and a promise of portfolio exposure through an unspecified brand partner. The header displayed a blurred agency logo, consistent with template files used in past trafficking-linked advertisements. The signature at the bottom belonged to an individual with no accessible professional history, but appeared on multiple archived job boards later. Associated with fraudulent agencies, Vera's messages to a close friend that same night indicate an initial excitement. She sent screenshots of the offer, highlighting the travel arrangements and projected earnings. Belarusian modeling forums routinely discuss the difficulty of securing consistent international jobs, and the financial terms offered in this contract fell at the high end of what new models typically expect. For someone seeking broader opportunities, the proposal would have appeared unusually favorable. She asked a few cautious questions in the chat about the shoot schedule, the accommodation location, and the company's registration, and received rapid, concise responses. Each answer pushed her a step closer toward acceptance. Over the next 48 hours, she attempted to verify the agency. Her search history shows brief checks of the company name and a cursory review of its social media pages, which contain sparse but professional-looking content. This level of verification aligns with the behavior of many first-time international models, who often rely on surface-level digital impressions rather than formal industry vetting. No red flags emerged strong enough to dissuade her. By the end of the second day, her hesitation had shifted into conditional trust. On September 6th, the regional talent partner sent final instructions, flight details, airport arrival procedures, and a confirmation code for her ticket. The sender's account went inactive less than an hour later, a pattern frequently noted in Telegram-based recruitment scams, where liaisons remain temporarily visible only until the victim commits. Vera did not appear to view the account's disappearance as significant. The final confirmation message had already supplied everything she needed. She booked the flight from Minsk to Bangkok on her own device that evening. According to her call logs, she recorded a short voice note for a friend minutes later. In it, she said, "It feels like a big step, but something about it is strange." The audio tone was calm, with no indication of distress. It was the last message she would send before her departure preparations began. The friend attempted to reply, but the message was never opened. Vera arrived at Suvarnabhumi Airport in the early evening. According to Thai immigration logs, The records place her among a steady flow of international travelers entering through the main arrival hall, each directed toward the automated border control gates. CCTV footage shows her carrying one medium suitcase and a small backpack, moving at a measured pace, occasionally checking her phone as if awaiting further instructions. In the footage, the blue glow from the automated gate panels reflects across her face as she steps forward, aligning her passport with the scanner. No officer intervenes, no questions are asked, and no secondary inspection is requested. Her entry is categorized as routine. After passing through the gate, she proceeds into the collections area where luggage carts line the walkway. Travelers around her speak in different languages, but she does not engage with anyone. Her device activity shows brief attempts to reconnect to mobile data as she exits the controlled zone. She opens the Telegram app twice but receives no new messages. The account belonging to her recruiter appears inactive, not deleted, but no longer responding. This is the first observable point where her expected support structure begins to recede. She remains in the terminal longer than the typical duration recorded for similar arrivals. The next time-stamped camera capture shows her near the currency exchange booths, standing apart from the crowds while reviewing something on her screen. Eyewitness accounts were not available, but airport behavior analysis suggests she was following instructions or waiting for a confirmation message that never came. Her posture is steady, but her continuous glances at the device indicate anticipation of further guidance. When she eventually enters the public arrivals area, she moves directly toward the transportation counters, but does not purchase a ticket or hire a driver. Instead, she walks to a seating area near the glass facade overlooking the taxi queues. A row of luggage carts is positioned in front of her, creating a partial barrier between her and the foot traffic. For nearly 15 minutes, she sits without making a call. Her phone logs show no outgoing communication to family or friends during this period. It is the first clear indication of a widening gap between her and her personal contacts. Airport Wi-Fi data shows she briefly accessed Instagram. A final story is uploaded, a simple image taken from the terminal's interior, showing only a small corner of the tiled floor and the lower frame of a nearby bench. It contains a short caption, "Made it." The story has no tagged location and no timestamp visible from the outside. Within hours, the story disappears. No further posts are recorded on her account after this one dot as she leaves the airport. The last confirmed digital event occurs. Her Telegram app attempts to reconnect to the recruiter's account. It shows a single gray check message delivered but unread. Minutes later, the account status changes not to offline, but to an unresponsive state common to deactivated or burner profiles. From this point forward, the line of communication that brought her to Thailand no longer exists. The 8 days following Vera's arrival in Thailand formed the longest undocumented segment of her timeline. Thai investigators reconstructed this window using only partial financial records, fragmented CCTV footage, and the limited digital traces her phone produced before going silent. The absence of hotel registrations under her name is the first anomaly. Under Thai law, foreign guests must be entered into a centralized reporting system within 24 hours of check-in. No entry corresponding to her passport number appears for any property in Bangkok. This suggests she either stayed in unregistered accommodation, was housed under another person's booking, or never checked into a formal residence at all. Her banking data provides the next verifiable point. On September 22nd, 2 days after her arrival, she withdrew a small sum of cash from an ATM located inside a mid-range shopping mall in central Bangkok. The machine's security camera shows her standing directly before the screen, her posture rigid, her attention focused downward. The reflection on the monitor briefly reveals her expression, intent, slightly strained, but controlled. Later analysis notes a blurred figure standing close behind her, positioned just outside the camera's clearest range. The individual's face is obscured by a cap, and their proximity suggests awareness of her actions. Though no interaction is recorded, a second withdrawal takes place the following afternoon at a different ATM situated near a commuter station. The withdrawal amount is similar. This time, the camera angle offers no view of her surroundings, only her hand retrieving the cash and the moment she pockets the card. These transactions fall within typical patterns for foreign travelers who rely on cash for local purchases, but the absence of any hotel billing, retail spending, or transportation charges indicates she was using either informal services or movement arranged. Outside standard networks, the single ride-share record linked to her phone occurs on September 24th. The pickup point is near a commercial district. The drop-off is in an industrial suburb known for warehouses, freight depots, and transit nodes used by migrant labor brokers. Ride-share companies in Thailand retain minimal interior footage, and none exists for this trip. The digital log confirms only that she entered the vehicle and that the car completed its route. Investigators were unable to verify whether she exited at the recorded location or was transferred elsewhere. CCTV from the drop-off area provides one more image. Vera crossing a paved lane bordered by metal shutters that extend the length of the warehouse row. She is holding her phone in one hand and her suitcase in the other. Her pace is steady, but she does not appear to know the area. No further images of her appear in any surrounding cameras after this moment. From this point until her departure for Myanmar, there are no confirmed sightings. Her phone activity decreases sharply, showing only background data attempts without successful connections. She does not message family or friends. No financial activity occurs. By the end of the week, her presence in Bangkok is reduced to administrative noise. A traveler who moved through the city without leaving enough trace to reconstruct her nights. When questioned, Thai authorities acknowledged they could not confirm where she slept on any of those 8 nights. This gap becomes the first definitive blank space in her disappearance. On the morning of September 20th, Vera reappears in Thailand's exit records. CCTV from Suvarnabhumi Airport shows her entering the departure hall with the same suitcase seen in earlier footage. She moves through the self-check-in kiosks without hesitation, scanning her passport and receiving her boarding pass for Thai Airways flight TG301 to Yangon. The kiosk camera captures a brief reflection on the screen, her face illuminated by the interface, expression neutral, focused. She does not attempt to call or message anyone while completing the process. From there, she proceeds to the automated border control exit gates. The system performs a biometric match and confirms her departure in a matter of seconds. No officer interacts with her. No questions are recorded. The archival value of this moment lies in its procedural completeness. She leaves Thailand through a mechanism designed to process individuals quickly, without human scrutiny. For investigators, this is the final controlled image of her in a country with reliable surveillance coverage. The boarding of TG301 is documented through the gate's overhead camera. Vera walks down the jet bridge at 10:12 a.m., holding her passport and phone, neither of which she uses during the recorded approach. Passenger manifests confirm she was assigned a window seat on the left side of the aircraft. Thai Airways personnel later stated that no unusual behavior was reported by the cabin crew. The flight duration, approximately 1 hour and 10 minutes, allowed little opportunity for notable interactions. Inside the aircraft, the sole available cabin camera still frames her in profile, looking out the window. The reflection of the wing is faintly visible on the glass beside her. She remains largely motionless throughout the flight, according to statements from nearby passengers who described her as quiet and unobtrusive. No one recalled hearing her speak. This aligns with her digital activity, which shows no outgoing messages from the moment she entered the terminal to the moment the plane landed. Upon arrival at Yangon International Airport, the recorded trail begins to weaken. Entry procedures in Myanmar differ markedly from those in Thailand. While foreign passports are scanned, the system lacks the data integration that would later allow investigators to track her movements with precision. CCTV coverage in the arrival hall captures her walking through a fluorescent-lit corridor, holding her immigration form. The camera angle provides only a partial view, but it confirms her arrival time and general appearance. After passing through immigration, no further footage can verify her next steps. She does not appear in hotel check-in systems, guesthouse logs, or short-term rental records in Yangon for that date. Myanmar's accommodation reporting requirements are inconsistently enforced, and unregistered lodging remains common. This lack of documentation marks the beginning of the jurisdictional void. Once she leaves the terminal, formal oversight effectively ends. The final verifiable data point comes from her phone. At 4:17 p.m., the device emits a single ping near a transport terminal known for dispatching long-distance vans toward Mayawati, a region where syndicate-controlled borders and trafficking operations are concentrated. This ping is brief, lasting only seconds before the phone disconnects entirely. No further signals are recorded. The device never reconnects. The silence that follows marks her complete disappearance. From all monitored systems. The disappearance of Vera's phone signal near the Yangon transport terminal establishes the final verifiable point in her movements. From there, investigators rely on survivor accounts and established trafficking routes to reconstruct her likely trajectory. The vans that operate from these terminals are unmarked and often privately contracted, moving passengers along overnight corridors toward Kayin State. These routes are used heavily by brokers transporting laborers, migrants, and increasingly, individuals deceived by false job offers. The vehicles typically depart after sunset, carrying passengers in cramped rows with limited ventilation and no documentation checks. A row of identical white vans is a common sight at these hubs. Drivers gather payments in cash. Manifests are rarely kept. Survivors interviewed by regional NGOs describe how foreign recruits are often approached before boarding by escorts, claiming to be translators or administrative assistants sent by employers. These escorts collect passports under the pretext of processing work permits or visas. Once the documents are taken, passengers are escorted into vans and instructed not to speak during the journey. It is within this framework that investigators place Vera's possible next steps. The drive from Yangon to Mayawati takes between 7 and 10 hours depending on road conditions. After darker sections of the freeway, the route narrows into rural stretches with minimal lighting and no active checkpoints. Post-2021, Myanmar's coup-related instability led to the withdrawal of state authorities from large portions of this corridor. Former police posts remain but are often unattended. A checkpoint booth with no officer inside is now common. Armed groups, militias, and criminal syndicates control separate segments of the region, creating a patchwork of authority where official oversight is fragmented or non-existent. Mayawati, the city believed to be her destination, operates under hybrid governance. Portions of the city fall under militia administrations, others under junta-aligned businesses, and the remainder under criminal operators tied to cross-border scam compounds. These areas include large complexes built to house cyber scam operations, where trafficked foreigners are forced to conduct fraudulent online schemes. Kayin State, where Mayawati is located, has become a central hub for such compounds, with tens of thousands reportedly trafficked there in recent years. In reviewing testimonies from individuals who escaped these networks, investigators identified a statement from a young woman trafficked from Vietnam. She recounted seeing a foreign passenger who appeared European board a van in Yangon during the same week Vera arrived. The description, a woman in her 20s, holding a suitcase close and keeping her head lowered, aligns with the limited imagery available from Vera's last known location. The witness reported that the woman appeared frightened and unaccompanied, except for a man who collected her passport before directing her toward the van. Beyond this point, no camera, border log, or official record identifies Vera again. The routes leading into the Myanmar region lack standardized surveillance, and vehicles entering syndicate-controlled areas pass into zones where documentation ceases entirely. For investigators, the trail ends at the threshold of a territory where state institutions no longer function, and where individuals can vanish without leaving even an administrative trace. Survivor testimonies provide the only reliable framework for understanding what likely occurred. After Vera reached the Myanmar region, scam compounds such as KK Park and Shui Kako function as enclosed commercial zones, fortified with perimeter walls, guard towers, and controlled entry gates. These complexes are structured like industrial facilities, administrative offices on the ground floors, dormitories above, and restricted rooms for disciplinary measures in isolated wings. Armed personnel, often contracted by syndicates or militia partners, manage movement between sections. Once a new arrival enters, the first process is document seizure. Former workers describe a metal tray placed on a reception desk where passports, phones, and identification cards are collected immediately. The stated purpose is employment processing, but the documents are never returned. Phones are either wiped or stored in lockers accessible only to staff. Withholding documentation serves as both a control mechanism and a means of preventing escape or external communication. Individuals who attempt to object are escorted to holding rooms until compliance is achieved. Assignment to cyber scam labor begins within hours. Recruits are taken to floors filled with rows of desks where computers are preset for fraudulent activities, romance scams, cryptocurrency manipulation, extortion schemes, or identity theft operations. Supervisors monitor output through software dashboards. Workers are given daily quotas measured in revenue or number of targeted interactions. The whiteboards along the walls list figures that must be reached by the end of each shift. Failure to meet targets is recorded and addressed through escalating penalties. Survivors recount that punishments range from verbal threats to physical assault. Electric batons, rubber truncheons, and confinement in locked rooms are frequently mentioned in NGO reports. Medical care is minimal. Injuries are often treated with basic supplies to maintain operational capacity rather than individual welfare. Those who consistently fall below quotas may be sold to other compounds or criminal groups. This transactional approach to human labor reflects a system where individuals function as replaceable units rather than employees. Within these testimonies, investigators found a reference to a foreign woman who arrived frightened, not speaking the language and unable to follow the scripts. The witness, an anonymous worker from a neighboring building, stated that she appeared Eastern European and carried herself as if she expected someone to explain what was happening. The timing of this recollection coincides with the period during which Vera disappeared from all documented records. The witness added that supervisors expressed frustration with her inability to meet communication quotas, placing her at high risk for disciplinary action. During the same time frame, a message was sent to Vera's family from her device. The phrasing used in the text included sentence structures inconsistent with her previous writing patterns. Digital linguists later noted that certain idiomatic forms resembled those used by non-native English speakers reading from pre-written templates. This discrepancy suggests that someone else may have had access to her phone or was instructed to message on her behalf. No follow-up messages were received. The reference to a Belarusian woman arriving at the compound during that week is the final indirect testimony connected to her timeline. Beyond this, survivor accounts diverge, and no specific detail places her in any recorded event. The absence of further sightings marks the transition from partially reconstructed movement to complete Informational loss. The final confirmed message from Vera to her family was sent on October 4th. Phone records show it was a short text reading, "I'll call tomorrow." The wording is consistent with her usual communication style, brief, polite, and direct. The timestamp places it late in the evening, though her location cannot be confirmed. No further outgoing messages originate from her device after this one. For investigators, this marks the end of her verifiable personal communication. In the following days, her parents attempted multiple times to reach her. Their calls went unanswered, and the messaging applications they used showed no signs of activity. Belarusian communication norms within families typically involve regular check-ins, especially when a relative is traveling abroad, making this extended silence unusual. On October 7th, a message arrived from her account containing a demand for money. The amount requested escalated quickly, eventually reaching the equivalent of US $500,000. The sender claimed she was being punished for failing to meet work expectations and threatened to sell her organs if payment was not made. The phrasing used in these communications contained syntactic irregularities inconsistent with her previous messages. Digital linguists later reviewed these texts and concluded that the writing displayed characteristics often associated with scam syndicates, abrupt tone shifts, mixed idiomatic structures, and reliance on scripted threats. Some sentences included terms not typical of Belarusian English speakers, suggesting the writer had limited familiarity with her linguistic background. The abrupt change in tone from familiar to transactional conveys the point at which her identity became a bargaining tool rather than a participant in the conversation. The family requested proof of life immediately. They asked for a voice message, a video call, or even a photograph holding a written date. No such verification was provided. Instead, the responses repeated earlier demands, each with increasing urgency. The lack of authenticating material is consistent with trafficking-related ransom attempts, where the victim's device is often used without the victim's presence or cooperation. Attempts by Belarusian authorities to track the origin of the messages were hindered by the region's limited telecommunications infrastructure and widespread use of VPN masking within scam compounds. During this period, her parents kept the phone on a shared kitchen table, waiting for any update. The quiet space, recorded during interviews, contained only the message notifications that arrived intermittently for several days. Each new alert signaled another demand rather than reassurance. The absence of her voice in any of these exchanges is a central point in the investigative record. Analysts noted that no audio, video, or live confirmation of her condition was ever produced. On October 10th, the messages abruptly stopped. No further demands were issued. Attempts by the family to initiate contact were met with silence. The device no longer appeared active on any platform, and no background data signals were recorded by providers. This sudden end is consistent with cases in which syndicates either abandon ransom efforts or lose operational access to the victim's phone. For investigators, the cessation of communication indicates a complete severance from all channels through which she might have been traced. The first official-looking document connected to Vera's fate reached her parents several weeks after all communication had ceased. It arrived not as an original paper, but as a single photograph sent through an unverified messaging account. The image showed what was labeled a cremation certificate issued in Myanmar. At first glance, the document appeared formatted in a familiar administrative style, but closer examination revealed a series of omissions that raised immediate concern. There was no hospital name listed, no attending physician, no official signature, and no stated cause of death. The signature block in the lower corner appeared blurred, as if intentionally obscured before the photograph was taken. Under Myanmar's civil regulations, legitimate cremation documents require identification of the deceased. the issuing facility, and the supervising authority. None of these fields were completed on the certificate sent to her family. In addition, the stamp affixed to the upper right corner did not match standard government seals cataloged in embassy records. Instead, it appeared to be a generic circular imprint frequently seen in forgeries recovered from scam compounds. Analysts reviewing the image noted that the font styles and line spacing were inconsistent with official documents issued in Yangon or Mandalay. When Belarusian officials were notified, they requested verification from their counterparts in Myanmar. Communications between the two governments show a pattern of delays and vague replies. Myanmar representatives stated that efforts are ongoing to clarify the situation, but did not confirm whether the certificate originated from a registered facility. Belarusian embassy staff attempted to trace the reference number printed on the document, but it did not correspond to any known cremation registry or municipal filing system. This lack of traceability is typical of documents generated outside formal channels, especially those associated with unlicensed crematoriums operating near syndicate zones. The location mentioned on the certificate provided the only concrete lead. It referenced a facility situated on the outskirts of Mayawati, an area with known proximity to compounds involved in cyber scam operations. NGOs have reported that some of these private crematoriums handle unrecorded deaths linked to labor exploitation and internal disciplinary violence. Survivors have described furnaces operating at night to reduce visibility and administrative oversight. The facility named on the certificate is one of several believed to provide disposal services for compound operators wishing to avoid state scrutiny. Supporting documents were never provided. There was no accompanying death notice, no transfer sheet, and no record of an autopsy. The absence of these materials prevented investigators from establishing even basic details about the alleged death. Belarusian authorities requested access to the site, but permission was not granted. Instead, Myanmar officials restated their commitment to addressing issues related to online fraud zones without acknowledging the certificate directly. When investigators contacted the crematorium referenced in the document, the response was limited. Staff claimed no record of a foreign woman being processed during that week. They also stated that their facility does not issue certificates directly, and that any such documentation must originate from medical authorities, contradicting the forms seen in the photograph. The lack of correspondence between the certificate and the facility's own statements left the document's origin unresolved, with no body, no chain of custody, and no verified administrative record. The certificate stands as an artifact without evidentiary weight. It neither confirms death nor disproves it. It merely marks the point at which the investigation into Vera's fate shifts from irregular communication to total uncertainty. The international response to Vera's disappearance unfolded through a sequence of press statements, diplomatic notes, and procedural deflections. Thailand was the first to issue an official position. In a televised briefing, delivered from a podium facing a row of microphones, the spokesperson for the Royal Thai Police Immigration Bureau stated clearly that Vera had departed the country of her own free will. They emphasized that CCTV recordings and biometric exit logs showed no signs of coercion. According to their account, responsibility for any incident occurring after her arrival in Myanmar did not fall under Thai jurisdiction. This position remained unchanged in all subsequent communications. Belarusian officials took a different approach, focusing primarily on managing public perception. The Ministry of Foreign Affairs released a statement advising citizens not to rely on irresponsible tabloid reporting concerning Vera's fate. They acknowledged that she had traveled for employment but indicated that accurate information is being sought through official channels. The use of neutral phrasing reflected an institutional effort to maintain distance from speculation while avoiding direct criticism of Myanmar. a country with which Belarus maintains diplomatic ties. Interviews with embassy staff later showed that they possessed limited information beyond what had already been shared by the family. Myanmar's response was the most ambiguous. Communications from the junta-aligned Ministry of Foreign Affairs referenced a broad effort to combat online scam centers, but offered no case-specific clarification. Requests from Belarus for additional details resulted in general statements about ongoing investigations. Myanmar's public messaging avoided acknowledging the presence of foreign victims in scam compounds, consistent with patterns documented since the 2021 coup. Press conferences concluded without providing concrete data, leaving the matter unaddressed at the procedural level. The fundamental challenge lay in jurisdictional fragmentation. Each government asserted control only over the portions of the timeline occurring within its borders. Thailand confirmed her exit. Belarus confirmed her disappearance. Myanmar provided no verifiable account of her movements after arrival. No state accepted responsibility for determining what happened in the region where traffickers operate with practical immunity. This administrative compartmentalization created an environment in which the investigation stalled without formal closure. International legal frameworks offer limited mechanisms for cooperation in cases involving transnational trafficking networks operating in conflict zones. Foreign investigators require authorization to access areas under contending authorities, but such permission is rarely granted. Documentation from other cases indicates that Myanmar has routinely restricted external inquiries into controlled zones. Belarusian diplomats reported difficulties communicating with local officials, citing unreturned messages and incomplete documentation. The most revealing detail emerged from a classified diplomatic communication, later referenced by a European official familiar with regional operations. The note stated that requests for physical access to controlled zones in Kayin State were denied on the grounds of security concerns. This phrase, common in Myanmar's post-coup administrative language, typically signifies areas governed by militia, alliances, and syndicate structures, where state oversight is limited or non-functional. Denial of access effectively prevents independent verification of any information related to trafficked individuals. At this stage, no cooperation existed between the three governments capable of reconstructing the missing segments of Vera's route. With no witnesses located and no investigative access granted to the region most likely to hold answers, the case began to drift toward bureaucratic inertia. The leaked diplomatic note marks the point at which officials recognized that the investigation was unlikely to proceed further, leaving her fate unresolved. The conclusion of Vera's case requires shifting focus from her individual movements to the larger network, capable of absorbing a person without leaving material evidence. Analysts reviewing her disappearance compared it to hundreds of similar cases documented across Southeast Asia. Young professionals contacted through fabricated job offers, transported across borders, stripped of identity documents, and placed inside cyberscam compounds that operate beyond the reach of conventional law. These facilities, concentrated in regions where state oversight is fragmented, maintain their own internal structures for labor, punishment, and disposal. Global trafficking statistics reveal that tens of thousands of individuals have entered these systems in recent years. Many originate from countries with strong digital footprints, yet their traces vanish once they enter zones controlled by militias or organized criminal groups. Survivors consistently describe environments designed to prevent escape and erase personal histories. Phones are confiscated, passports stored in secured lockers, and communication monitored or prohibited. Workers who fail to meet revenue quotas are subjected to violence or transferred to other groups. The isolation of these compounds, combined with their private security, creates conditions in which victims are cut off, not only from their families but from any agency capable of intervening. Investigators examining death records from these regions note significant gaps. Unclaimed bodies appear in crematorium logs without identifying details. Some facilities report multiple cremations of unnamed foreigners within the same week, often corresponding to periods when trafficking operations intensify or internal discipline escalates. Medical documentation is rarely produced, and in many cases non-existent. This pattern aligns with reports from NGOs describing clandestine disposals of individuals who were injured, killed, or deemed unprofitable by compound. Managers, a former worker from one such compound later, stated that several bodies none formally identified were cremated during the same week that Vera's parents received their certificate. The witness could not confirm nationalities or identities, but noted that foreign women were less common among arrivals, making the coincidence noteworthy. This testimony, while unverified, fits within the broader operational norms documented in the region. Deaths that occur internally are resolved internally, without state registration, without autopsies, and without acknowledgement. Legal mechanisms for retrieving victims from these areas are almost non-existent. International law provides frameworks for cross-border trafficking cases, but these frameworks depend on cooperation from local authorities. In territories governed by militias, syndicates, or hybrid authorities, foreign governments cannot enforce access. Families seeking answers face a system where the jurisdiction, capable of providing information, does not recognize the obligation to do so. As a result, cases like Vera's progress toward administrative silence rather than resolution. The psychological impact on families is severe and enduring. They receive fragments, messages without verification, documents without provenance, and rumors that cannot be substantiated. Without a body, without a witness, and without institutional cooperation, they remain in a state of indefinite uncertainty. Vera's case exemplifies this condition. She entered a system designed not only to exploit individuals, but to eliminate the possibility of external accountability, a locked gate at the entrance to a restricted compound zone. Captured in a single NGO photograph, symbolizes the barrier investigators face. Behind such gates, records are controlled internally, and events unfold without independent observation. In the absence of verifiable evidence, her fate becomes inseparable from the statistical anonymity of the system itself. The final question remains unresolved. Did Vera die inside the compound network? Or does she remain among those whose disappearance has not yet been documented? The available evidence supports neither conclusion conclusively. Her story ends in uncertainty, suspended between two possibilities, neither of which offers closure.